Nike was the first supersonic anti-aircraft guided missile designed to follow the enemy target regardless of evasive action. This improved version, called Nike Ajax, has been the backbone of the Army's continental anti-aircraft defense in past years.
I can recall, as many people do, we had drills at school where you go under your desk. So the fear was a hydrogen bomb would be dropped in our country somewhere, or maybe a couple of locations.
In the heights of the Cold War, the Soviet Union had atomic bombs. Well, we had atomic bombs, but at that time, they had to bring it on the planes.
And they suspected bombers would come over the Arctic and come down over the United States. So they ringed these cities with, protection. It wasn't just here in Philadelphia, it was many cities in the United States.
In the Philadelphia region, there were 12. One in Richboro, Warrington. I started out at Chester. So it surrounded the entire city. Here in 1956 was when Richboro site was started. But Richboro at that time was a farming community, very rural. We had about 2,000 people living in the entire community.
People that lived here would recall times of seeing, men in open army trucks going between the two sites.
Although I was told that during that time a lot of people would invite them in for dinner and those kind of things, which are nice. But as far as activities, I think you had the Spread Eagle. I think that was probably a place they would stop for a couple beers or whatever.
These sites always had two locations. And the location here, one is on Richboro Newtown Road. The radar site was up on the hill on Twanningford Road, which is the highest point in the township. The buildings that you see close to Twanningford Road would have been the administrative buildings. But if you look up on the hill, and again, that's the highest point in Northampton Township, you would see a small building up there, and that was where the radar was, up on top of that hill.
Now over in Richboro, that launching site was at the recreation area. And the Nike Ajax units had the missiles stored underground. Matter of fact, there's still a magazine, empty of course, over at the recreation area in Richboro. And if there was an actual attack, or even alerts, you'd bring the missile up on a large elevator, come up top side with the booster on a rail. They would slide over, get it elevated, and have it ready for firing. The missile itself would contain 3 warheads, front, center, and aft. It didn't have to hit the aircraft. As soon as it came in with very close proximity, the missile will explode and take down the aircraft.
It was manned by the Army and by Army reservists at a later time.
We had people that set up the missile, people that raised the missile. My job at the panel where I pushed the buttons for the missile to go.
Typically, I'd say around 100 people, usually commanded by a captain. And then you have NCOs, and you had cooks, you had mechanics, vehicle drivers, just like any military unit, except the component of that, which I was involved in, was the launching crew, the launching area.
We had to be operating constantly, so that means we had to have people 24 hours.
Gosh, I guess the toughest part was just the waiting for something to happen, hoping it never happens. So just being ready at all times. And the reason they were dissolved as far as being deactivated was they were no good against missiles. So when the Soviet Union decided to forget the bombers, they're going to go into missile programs that they can fire from Russia. That changed the whole scenario, and as a result, the Nike Ajax units were deactivated. Between 1956 and 1961, part of the base was located right here where I'm standing.
Well, it's history. It's history, and it's no different than anything else that we memorialize. If we don't record the history, we will forget about it, and nobody will know what it was. I mean, that was the importance of applying for and getting the Pennsylvania marker that exists over at the rec center. So future generations know that it was there and know what it did and why it was there. If we don't record some of this history, we're not going to be able to go back and figure out what happened.